Good evening and welcome back to another episode of Change Talks. This evening we'll be focusing on the psychodynamic approach to change. Now, the word psychodynamic is based on the idea that when facing change in the external world, an individual experiences a variety of internal psychological states. Now, the idea that humans go through psychological process during change came about by research done by Kubler Ross. Today, we'll be focusing on the Kubler Ross model. Stay tuned for more. As stated before, we'll be talking about the Kubler Ross model. Now, the Kubler Ross model came about after doing work with terminally ill patients and realizing that they would go through different psychological stages as they would come to terms with their illness. The Kubler Ross model has 5 stages, and the 5 stages are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally acceptance. Today we'll be talking about these 5 stages, and not only that, but I'll be using the example of COVID-19 to explain how I went through these 5 stages as I came to terms with the COVID-19 pandemic. The first stage is denial, and in this stage, persons would not normally take in whatever is going on, and so they would be emotionally numb towards any situation or any change that they would experience. And for me personally, with the COVID-19 pandemic, when it just hit Jamaica, I was in denial. I was like, this is not actually going on, and it will be leaving soon. But that took me to the next step, which is anger. When I finally allowed myself to acknowledge the fact that the COVID-19 pandemic was actually here in Jamaica, then I became angry at the fact that I couldn't go to school, I couldn't see my friends. I just became angry that I could not control the process of change. I could not control what was coming next. In some ways, anger is somewhat like denial, because it was me not wanting to accept the change that was coming, which is COVID-19. And so I became angry because of the third step of the Kübler-Ross model is bargaining. And so when I was done attacking the government for allowing COVID-19 to enter into the country, when I was done attacking the citizens of Jamaica for allowing the spread of the COVID-19 virus, then I came to terms with what was going on, and I started to bargain. I started to tell myself and God that if I get another chance to see my friends, if I get another opportunity to go outside and socialize, then I will try my very best not to let any moment slip me, not to let any moment pass me by, but to enjoy every single minute of it. And so once again, we can see where the stage of bargaining is kind of a deflection of the true gravity of the situation. So bargaining perhaps is kind of panicking. The person is desperately asking around for something, anything to remedy the issue. And that's exactly what I was doing. Now moving on to the next step, which is depression. In the depression stage, Kübler-Ross explains that when a person realizes that no amount of begging or bargaining can actually provide a way of escape from the situation, then the true intensity or true gravity of the situation kicks in. And because the person now understands that nothing they do can change the situation, they fall in a state of depression. For me, when I realized that there was nothing I could do about the COVID-19 pandemic on my own, I fell in a state of depression. And according to Kübler-Ross, depression does not only mean a state of sadness. For some, it can be a state of apathy. It can be persons disconnecting from others. And for me, it was just that. I shut away from everyone else and I started to feel some form of sadness. Sadness because I couldn't see my friends. Sadness because I could not go out freely without wearing a mask. And finally, the stage of acceptance. This is where I moved out of the state of depression and perhaps came to terms with the fact that this is really happening and I should just accept it for what it is. Now, acceptance does not necessarily mean that I was happy with the situation or I am happy with the situation. Acceptance merely means that I accept the change for what it is, I acknowledge the change, and I'm willing to see it for what it really is. At this point, all the fear, all the anger, the denial, the bargaining, and the depression is gone. And now I'm just not merely okay with the fact that COVID-19 is here, but there's a sense of peace knowing that it is already here and I have to just ride out the storm until it goes. Other management experts decided to add a few stages to the Kubler Ross model. And some of these stages include relief, shock or surprise, and one of my personal favorites, experimentation. Now, during this pandemic, a lot of persons have experimented, so too have I. And I realized that I have a few hidden talents that I didn't really know about. And so you can see where I did my hair by myself, which is, I experimented and it worked out for me. Another stage added to the model is a stage of discovery. And so as persons enter into the new world of change, they discover new things, they discover new findings and likes and other dislikes as the change takes place. And so too, as I said before, I discovered that I have a hidden talent after experimenting. That was the Kubler Ross model explained using the example of the COVID-19 pandemic, which we're currently experiencing worldwide. I'm Randisha Edwards, and this is what I've learned in change management class from Mr. Tack.